Hey people, my name is Yannick Mounts and I'm super happy to be back here on Production Music Live. Yeah, for another masterclass. This time I'm taking care of the part of the Arps and Melodies of the Melodic House course. Me and my team, we were thinking about how we can do our best to get you all the information that you will need to make nice and smooth ARP melodies and to give you the tools you need for that. So we were listening and analyzing a lot of tunes from Ben Böhmer, Tinlicker, Lane 8, Massanet, Elifour, and all those very nice melodic house artists. And we tried to channel them into this course and we tried to work out some principles that will help you to achieve nicer arps and melodies. So I'm really hyped for this course to start with. In general, in this course, I prepared a couple of tracks for you. One is from Massanet, one is from Ben Böhmer, and we will work on those tracks. So please be aware that I won't go too deep into like all the harmonic explanation, what's going on there. I will explain it very briefly and very shortly, but it won't be too intense. Also, we will not go in this part into the drum work of the tracks. You can check this out in the groove part of this course, which I will be doing as well. So to directly start, I want to introduce you to what an arpeggio is in general, and we will do this on Ableton Live 11, which is pretty cool because there you have this nice scale function that you can enable down here on the left side. So you can just type in any scale you want. You can choose from all the 12 different semitones and choose a lot of different scales, and we will go in a couple of them as well. Okay, so let's have a look at what an arpeggio actually is and how we can use it. Okay, so I just created this blank project here. We'll save it for a moment, and now we create a MIDI clip by hitting Shift, Command and M. This is the fastest way to do it. And I will just start very simply with an C major triad. By the way, you can enable the scale mode here on the left side on Ableton 11. And by default, it's set to C major, but you can take a lot of different scales here. So let's just choose our C major chord here. Perfect. All right, so this would be just a very boring C major chord. There's nothing playing yet because we have to insert an instrument. I'm going to do the whole course with the wavetable synth, which is working out pretty well actually. There are some things that are not that good, but we'll take control of that as well. So I'm just using like a basic saw shape. This is not that important at the moment. I will just want to show you how the Ableton arpeggiator is working, but we will go into more sound design later on. So let's close down the filter a little bit so we don't have those annoying high frequencies. All right, I will just turn down the volume a little bit because I have to hear my voice as well. Cool, so now we just have our basic chord. Just to try it. So the cool thing about arpeggiators is that you insert them here on the left side on MIDI effects, then you have it here, just double click. And now the arpeggiator will take the MIDI note that is coming into the arpeggiator and it will transform it into rhythmical notes. So for example, now the rate is set to 1/8 note here. And now it's taking all the three notes, dum, bum, bum, and it's just arpeggiating them one after each other. And then when there is no more note information, it will restart again. So this is like the basic functioning of an arpeggiator. So if you turn this rate up or down, it will increase or decrease the tempo of the notes getting arpeggiated. Okay, 16th note. I will just add a little bit of a metronome here so we have a rhythmical reference, so the quarter note, right? You can turn down the volume of the metronome and also of the incoming monitoring if you have some here in the down right corner. So I don't want it super loud because it's a little bit annoying. And by the way, you can also change the sound of the metronome if you don't like it. It's just you click this little arrow here and then you can choose the click sound, which is a little bit more subtle than the hardcore standard sound. All right, cool. So let's go. So now we have our rhythmical reference and we can just play around a little bit with the rate here. Super fast. Okay, now my MIDI notes are over. I will just set a basic loop here, 2 bars. Okay, cool. So we will explore the arpeggiator a little bit now. Now we have the style up. Up means that it will start on the lowest note, go to the next higher note, and then to the next higher, and it will continue like that. So in our case, we'll start with the C. Wait, I will open up the MIDI information for you. It will go up to the E and then to the G. But if we take down, for example, and you have a lot of possibilities here, it will start on the G, go to the E, and then to the C. Alright, so let's just go and explore a little bit. I think like one of my recommendations if you're like making up new sounds and patches and all that stuff is to not use them too dry, because now the synth, it sounds a little bit... It sounds okay, but it's a little bit boring, okay? So I would suggest that we just insert a little bit of echo and reverb, and it will make it sound much better. Cool, so let's do that. Just type in echo here, double click to insert it. Let's go with the Ableton reverb as well. And you can use any kind of reverb here. This really doesn't matter as long as you type in kind of the settings that I will type in. Okay, cool, so by default the echo is set to dotted. You can see that here, 8th notes. And that's pretty cool. It's a very groovy rhythm. Dotted eighth notes, I will explain later what that means in detail. So let's just turn down the dry and wet for now to about like 20%. The reverb is set to 1 second and 20 milliseconds. That's a little bit too short for my taste. So let's increase that to around 4 seconds. This also does not really matter that much. Then we can cut the lows a little bit. So we just have the mids and not too much high and low end information, because it would muddy up the mix a little bit. And then we just turn it down to around 15%. So let's have a listen. Okay, cool. So now it's already a little bit dreamier. Great, so let's continue with our arpeggiator settings. We will just flip through the styles a little bit and see what they're doing, okay? So this is down, starting on the highest note, up, down. Of course, we'll play up and then we'll play down. So now it's playing C, E, G, E, C. So let's try down, up. Now it's just inverting the whole thing. It's playing G, E, C, E, G. Then you have up and down. So now it's not playing like up and down was like C, E, G, E, C, and up and down was like C, E, G, G, E, C. So it was repeating the middle note. So same thing for down and up, converge. Converge, it's like it's playing the first one, then the highest one, and then the second one. So it's playing C, G, E. Diverge, this will be the other way around. So it's playing the G, the C, and then the E. Con and diverge will be both after each other. Pinky up, so this is the pinky, like it's referring to our fingers when we play the piano, means that the highest note will get repeated more often in comparison to the other notes. This means that pinky up down will mean it just plays the pinky and the rest of the notes will play up down. And thumb up means that the thumb will, the lowest note that you would play on the piano with the thumb, this will get emphasized and played more. Order means that if you play the notes after each other, so you're not hitting that at the exact same time, it will play them in the order that you hit the note. So if you, for example, hit the C first and then the G and then the E and then another note or whatever, it will play them in that order. Chord trigger is pretty interesting. This means that it's not making separate notes out of your chord, but it's playing the whole chord. So this is something to keep in mind. Just playing with the frequency a little bit. We can even start going to the matrix here, which enables us to put a little bit of envelope amount on our filter, so we get a little bit more of a plucky sound. So let's just turn up the envelope 2 amount here on the filter frequency. And let's just drag this sustain time down here so it gets more close towards the end. Cool, so now we already have a little bit cooler sound. Perfect, let's continue. Random, of course, what should it be? It's just randomizing the notes. And sometimes you can get pretty cool ideas from the machine out of the random mode. But the thing is, how do you keep those ideas? So sometimes random is super random and it does not fit your track. And I have a little trick for you. So if you create a MIDI track by hitting Shift Command and T for audio track, you can set here in the in and out settings. If you don't see them, go to the down right corner and you click on I and O, in and out settings for MIDI as well as for audio. And then you can enable here in the input, it's just now it's all in. So you could plug in any synth or MIDI keyboard and would receive MIDI from that. But now we want our MIDI information to be taken from our first channel, the arpeggiated a wavetable. So we click here and then we will choose one wavetable here. Now we just hit the record aim button, go to the beginning, and now just hit recording. And now you can see we had our like basic triad in the beginning, then we put an arpeggiator on it, and now we recorded the arpeggiated notes that were random, but now we maybe we like something out of that, and then we can just pick a very certain part of that. So this is how you could do that. Alright, so let's get rid of this channel. Cool, so there are two more random styles that you can just check out. Play around here, it's a lot of fun. The next thing is this hold button. So if your note information is not as long as this is that I have here, so let's shorten this up for a moment. So now the arpeggiator, if we just put it back on up mode, it would stop right away. But if you press hold, it will hold the notes. Okay, so this is just in case you don't wanna, you have something recorded very shortly, then you can use this just to boost your workflow and you don't have to drag all the notes very long and do all this exhausting work. Just joking. So let's just hit legato here and it will drag the notes until the end. This is pretty easy. Alright, the offset knob is controlling whether the arpeggiator is starting on your root note or on the first note that it's playing. So in the up mode it would be the C, and if you put it on the 1, then it would be one step high. It would start one step higher, so it would start on the E, and if you put it to 2, it would start on the G. So let's just decrease the rate a little bit so we can hear it more clearly. Bum, bum, bum. So you hear it's starting on the highest note, and if we're putting it to 1, bum, 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 then it's starting on the second highest note. So this is just stuff you can play around with. And we can make a little experiment here. We will disable the sync now, and I will show you a little trick. For this trick, you will have to use your internet connection, and you just go to a homepage that is called Convert BPM to Milliseconds, and now you just type in your tempo here. We are currently at 120 BPM, which is fine. And now you can see all those different beat divisions here, which means 1/8 notes will be 250 milliseconds, a triplet eighth notes will be 167 milliseconds, and so on. So we can just go back into our Ableton and put this to 250 milliseconds. So now it should lay 8 notes which are in the groove with our tempo. Perfect. It's working out. So for now I will just create a new MIDI channel, insert a kick. So let's go over to the PML packs. There are some pretty cool kicks in the Premium Volume 6 from Stereo Voltage. They're really good. I love them. I use them in my live sets a lot. This one especially. This one is the one I'm using there all the time. So let's just create a kick drum that's just playing on every quarter. Drag the volume down. Okay, now we can disable the metronome. Actually, it was pretty cool with a little bit more click. Well. And now let's get back to our trick. Now we have our milliseconds time. So now we know that 250 milliseconds equals an 8th note, which is in sync with our track. So now we can right click here and go to show automation. Let's just open this up a little bit more. And now we can automate the rate of the arpeggio. So it will start somewhere off, or we could even start on like a 16th or a 1/64th note. And then it will increase or decrease the rate. And then it will sync exactly in the time when we need it to sync. And that's pretty cool. I will show you how it sounds like. So let's say we want to get back to the straight 8th rhythm on the beginning of the 3rd quarter. You can enable, like you can switch the automation mode on and off by just clicking A. It's pretty easy, so you don't have to click here all the time. Cool. Okay, so let's say we want to be on our 8th notes, on our straight 8th notes, back again at the 3rd quarter note, which would be here. You can see it here, 1.3. So we just go to our automation mode and let's drag down the rate from our arpeggio. So now it starts really fast and then gets back into the right grid at the time we decided to. And this is something pretty cool. Have a listen. Oops, I have to start in the beginning. Okay, so and now you can restart here again and you can make some pretty cool, like, I don't know if it's flumish, but it's like somehow like flowerish, like, you know? So let's just, if you hit Option, you can drag this curve to make it more concave and convex. And let's try both directions. We could even get slower, so let's take, I click edit value, let's take 500 here, which equals a quarter note. Maybe we don't start that fast. So, and this is something you can hear in a lot of tracks at the moment, especially also in like the more like techno-ish realms of electronic music. You have like this big lead like brrrng, dong, 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 brrrng, dong, 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 dong. So we could even, you know, just go down here. Sometimes it's very on and sometimes it's very off. Start at the beginning. Maybe we can get a little bit faster here. Okay, so this is not making too much sense because we don't have any more melodic and harmonic information here, but it's something worth playing around with. So let's get back to our arpeggiator and continue with the basic settings. I will just delete this automation for now. Let's get back to our sync rate. And now we will continue with this section here with the transpose section. So now our arpeggiator is just arpeggiating 3 notes again and again. C, E, G all the time. No higher octave, nothing. So now let's have a look at this section here, the transpose section. This means that at the moment, currently the ARP is just arpeggiating C, E, and G all the time. And that's cool, but it's also a little bit boring. So if you increase the step number here for 1, it will repeat the whole section. So C, E, and G again in a higher octave, 1 octave higher. So let's have a listen. Okay, if you put 2, it will octavate it in 2 octaves, in 3, and so on, and so on, and so on. And now if we do it a little bit, increase the rate a little bit. And if we do that with the rate automation, it could be very interesting actually. Let's just increase the rate a little bit more. Very bubbly. Let's just close down the frequency, filter frequency for a moment. Already sounds pretty cool. Okay, those are the steps, but we haven't talked about the distance here. So let's have a look at the distance section. Distance just means that it will play the octaves exactly 12 semitones above the root note that it's getting fed into the arpeggiator, which means it will play exactly the octave above the note, in this case you fed into the arpeggiator. If you change this parameter, with chords it's not making so much sense because, you know, inside your scale, your notes will not, like you will not have a major chord, exactly the same major chord on the, I don't know, 4th degree or on the 6th degree of your scale. So this distance knob, you should use it with more simple notes, so like with 5th or even just with 1 note, okay? So I will just demonstrate you what it will do. So let's go with steps like one octave above it, and then let's play with the distance a little bit. So let's put it to 11, or first let's again listen with 12 semitones, which equals an octave. Let's go to 10. Just switching through there a little bit. So it gets sometimes gets a little bit weird there. Okay, so let's have a look at the velocity right here. So if you turn that on, I think it's a little bit confusing, the naming velocity there. I mean, it is the velocity, but this just means that the target down here, 64, means a velocity of 64, which is like the half of the scale of velocities. You have like 128 steps in velocity, and 64 is the half of that. So if you put that to 0, it means no velocity, it means no sound. So what you can do with this is very interesting. So now you can set with the decay time here, you can set the decay time for your arpeggiator. So now the arpeggiator will only work for 1 second. And then will stop. So if you decrease the second here, we'll just do it very slowly, like just 148 milliseconds. If you increase it, it will be a little bit longer. And this can be pretty interesting for a couple of things. So if we go into our MIDI notes here in our piano roll, just take those. Let's just take the C major again. And then we just take like another chord out of the C major scale. So let's take the A minor, and I just have to move the G to the A here. And we'll just take another chord. So let's take the F major, which I can achieve by just transposing the E to the F. And now we have F, A, and the C here. So it's the second inversion of the F major. If you're struggling with that, I recommend you to, to take a little bit of piano classes. It really helps out. Okay, so let's have a look here and a listen. Okay, so now you're saying, okay, maybe it's a little bit short, so let's increase this decay time here. Let's maybe increase the rate a little bit. And if we go to 3, maybe we can just play with that a little bit. Alright, so now you can see how you can work with this. So let's set those settings back again to where we have been before we were taking care of the velocity. Let's just double click here to go to our basic sections. So far so good. So let's have a look at the last section of our arpeggiator here. So this is the retrigger mode, and retrigger means it just the arpeggiator gets retriggered. So it will just get activated again at a certain point. So if we put this to beat mode, this means after one beat, this means after 1 bar, 4 quarter notes, it will start again. So if we have a listen, now it started again. If we put this to 1/2, it will start the whole arpeggiator again after a half bar. Dun, dun. And with repeats, now it's set to infinite. So as long as there is MIDI information coming in, it will repeat in this style. If you say, I just wanted to repeat it in this style 2 times or 3 times or whatever you dial in, this is how you make it possible. Note means that the retrigger will be triggered by the note information that's coming into the arpeggiator. So every time a new note is hit coming in, it will trigger this retrigger mode. And now there's only the half bar is deactivated because we don't have the time that is retriggering. We have the note that is retriggering. And now we can only dial in the repeats here. So every time a note will hit, the arpeggiator would repeat after like 2 times, for example. I actually never used this function. I think it's a little bit too complicated and not boosting my personal workflow, but this is how it works. Alright, so the last section we have to have a look at is the groove section here. So now we have straight notes. So there's no groove, and groove means that the notes that are slightly off the grid, like if humans would play it, in the best case they are on the beat, and this is something of course we should all be able to do, but some people, they can groove and they can just drag some notes to the front or delay some notes to the back. Okay, so if we go and select the swing 8 mode here, let's have a listen. So now it's delaying the second note to the back. And those are just different swing times for different groove sections. So if you have the rate of 16th, you would choose the swing of 16th. I'm personally not working with them a lot, but it's something worth checking out. Alright, so this was the basic introduction into the Ableton arpeggiator. I hope I could bring some light into the darkness, and if not, please write us. We're always there to help you, of course. And there are a couple of things and a couple of cool play-arounds that I showed you that you can use for your own productions, especially the one with the rate. Check that out. Alright, so using an arpeggiator like in this very standard way, like, or even in a 16th grid. This is, it's pretty old schoolish, this is like what you will find in all the synthesizer. I have one here, the Moog Sub 37, and it's not very special, because it's always repeating kind of the same notes over and over again, even though, of course, as we learned a couple of moments ago, that you can change this a little bit. But I think it opened up a world for producers. So producer would take like an arpeggiator, and then they would, like as I showed you earlier, they would re-record the MIDI information, and then they would just go and take some notes out of there and then play with those notes. So this is actually a pretty cool workflow that I want to show you now. So if we would go into our MIDI note information here, let's just select all of our chord notes. Just play a little bit here with the note information. So we have our C major chord here, and let's take F major as a second chord. So we need an F, we need an A, and we need a C. So now we have a C major, F major. Hey, let's have a listen. Okay, so if we would now create again a MIDI channel, hitting Command-Shift-T, let's use our wavetable as a MIDI in, record aim, go to the start and record it. Alright, cool. So now we have our MIDI information here. So let's take our synthesizer with effects. Let's select them all with Shift, holding down Shift, and just putting here, clicking here, hold down Shift. Now let's hit Command and G to group those. And now we will just Command copy and Command paste the whole group here. So now let's deactivate our first instrument, deactivate the record aim button because we don't need to record anything anymore. And now let's drag this volume down to -12 so it's good in a mix. And now it's interesting because now we have now we can vary notes here, you know, and now it gets a little bit more interesting because we have, you know, we're not that limited anymore. And I think this is something that developed out of ARP. So this is why also in organic house or melodic house, people, they like the style of ARPs, that it's a very repetitive pattern, but they wanted to give their own note into that pattern. And this is what we will learn in this course as well, like how to transform like a very basic arpeggio as this into a little bit cooler one. So let's just make a very basic example here, but we will go and dig deeper into that later on. Alright, so now you have control over all of the MIDI notes here. We could now say, okay, I want the third note, the G, for example, to be playing an A. So we just transpose it up 2 semitones. If you want to hear the note that's currently getting played, you have to enable this little headphone here. So now you can, you know, now you're looking for, in general, of course, you're looking for your own style, you know, and you're looking for the note that feels right for you. I'm going to give you some examples later on which kind of melody shapes work out and all that stuff, but I'm a big fan of individual producing, and I don't want to, you know, I just want to give you a rule of thumb in the end, not something that you have to stick to, like, this is how you do it, okay? So you can alternate the notes now, and you can even just select a note, hit 0, and just deactivate one. So let's just have a listen on how that sounds now. Okay, so now we can start I will just go in and randomly deactivate some notes here, okay? Let's go here, maybe this one as well. I can even close my eyes. Okay, so let's have a listen. Okay, and now we can start by dialing in new notes. So we know that in the first bar it's all C major, so we can start by putting in a C, for example, here. And if we don't like this C here, we can transpose it up and even take this G, put it to the B here. If we want that note back again, we can just enable it, drag it up. Okay, so now you can already feel that it's getting a lot more groovy, a lot more individual. And because we have our scale mode enabled, it's not really a problem, you know, we can do a lot of stuff here. So I will just activate this note again and this one, and then just drag this up here. Because now I'm reactivating them, because in the first half bar we have a lot of notes going on. So if there are a lot of notes, like it would feel, in my personal taste, would feel a little bit empty if there are not as many notes as in the first half bar and the second half bar. Okay. Okay, so let's try just to transpose this one up here. Okay, there are some notes missing here. So let's transpose this up to the B and reactivate it again. Let's just loop this section for a moment so we can concentrate on it a little bit more. And now you can just click around and play with it. And now we can even start, because we're not in our arpeggiator mode anymore, to add harmonies to our single notes and to emphasize single notes in our arpeggiator with a very small duophonic harmony. So if I put the E here, and we would at this point in our arpeggio we would have a minor third here. Sorry, that took long. Alright, so if we want to over-exaggerate it, we can also put a minor third below the C here, and we had like kind of a minor, A minorish feeling there at this point. And you can do this with every note. So you see where this is going. So now you can come from a very basic 16th pattern, but then you have a shape, and you're not in this writer's block so much anymore, you know. And then you can just start experimenting, and then you can say, I want to get rid of all of those notes again, and then start over again. And so this is like how you recycle your MIDI information until you have something that you like, or you have something that you hate. This can also happen. And then you just throw it away and do something else and then get back to it later. So I think it's a pretty cool workflow. Okay, cool. So this is it for the first part with our basic introduction into the arpeggiator. And in the next part, we will continue with our melodic house Arp and Melody sessions. And I'm very happy to be back. As I said earlier, please don't mind, I'm changing my dresses a little bit, and also this room will change a little bit because I'm recording the session over a couple of days. Because this whole class, it's taking a lot of creative energy from me. That's why I will be recording it over several days. So please don't mind if I have a different dress, or the room or the light will look a little bit different in the next video. Have a great day and see you in the next lesson. Bye bye. Hey guys, hey girls, I'm back in the studio. Now continuing with the main leap art part of our melodic house and ARP section here. I'm really looking forward for this one, and in this chapter of the whole course we will discuss how to rebuild a Masane style ARP. And I would just jump directly into the project, and then you can have a listen to what we're going to build. And yeah, let's go. So this is the basic loop of the whole track. I tried to recreate it as good as possible by just really take a deep listen into all the different elements and rebuilding the harmony. And before we start with our ARP, I want to just have a quick look into what's going on there harmonically, because there is a little harmonic twist in the end, which is, I think, pretty interesting. And if you wanna check out the drums, we won't have a deep look into the drum programming here. It's pretty standard. It's just a snap on the 2 and the 4, normal melodic house kick, and just a bit of percussion and hi-hat. So we will have a look at that in our melodic house groove section of this whole course. All right, so let's have a look at the harmony that is going on here. I made this little markers up here where you can see in which chord we're at the moment. So at first it's a B minor chord. I know that because the bass line, which is this one, playing a B in the beginning, and always like the lowest tone that's going on at a certain moment in your track, it will determine the tonality or the chord at that moment. But this has to do something with a human perception of harmony and melody. All right, so on R1, there is the B minor chord, and oftentimes when tracks start like with a certain chord, they are in that scale as well, but we don't always know. So I started to look at the second chord, which is a D major chord, and the D major chord is also in the scale of B minor. That made the point a little bit clearer that the whole track is in B minor. After the D major chord, there is the G major chord, and then there is the A major chord. And then in the very end, in our last half bar, we have those 3 bassline notes that are playing an A sharp, and the A sharp is the leading tone to our B because it's a half step below our B. So this one will create a tension that will lead us back to the B minor chord in a very strong way. Maybe you'll have a listen to that one more time. This has something to do with our perception of music harmonically, and that like half tones in a certain scale, they want to resolve into, in this case, into our root note, our root chord note, the B. So this is a pretty cool move, and you can do this by yourself. So if you're starting like in any chord, you're for example starting at a C minor chord, then you're doing your chords, and then in the end, in the last bar or in the last half bar, this is really just up to you. You can insert a leading tone there, which would be, in the case of C, one half step below would be the B. So if you're putting in a B in the last one bar, it will lead, it will have a certain pull towards the C. So just a little excursus so you know what I mean. So try to experiment with that a little bit. So now we have a good impression of the overall sound of the track and what's going on there. As you can see, I marked this part red here, so we know that there's a point in the scale where it's going a little bit off scale because the leading tone is not necessarily in our natural minor scale, so that's why it's marked red here, so we can have a special focus on that part when we will recreate the art. Alright, so as I said in the introduction, we will have a look at some rules, some like motive rules, and also primary and secondary aspects of this ARP. What is really characteristic for those melodic house ARPs is that they oftentimes are very short themes that get repeated one after the other. So in this case, if we would just listen to our ARP here, if we have a look at this ARP, we can see that it has a very similar production approach every bar. In this bar, we have this higher note, then it's going up, then it's going like a stairway up, and then it's going down again. And the same kind of theme is happening here in the second bar and in the third bar, but like the lowest note, it's changing accordingly to the chords that are being played in the background. So I try to like make some rules out of that. So you can do this by yourself. I mean, you don't want to like completely copy anything, okay? So I wouldn't like go in there and release something like that because it's the work of someone else and this is something we should respect. But we can analyze some approaches of those artists and we can analyze their styles as well, because this is in the end, this is like making up your style. So I hope that you will find out what is your style of creating ARPs, because this will help you develop your own style as well. Cool. So what popped into my mind directly when we have a look at this ARP was that it's not even starting on the one here. I will just right click here and put the one here so it's more clear. So this ARP, it's starting at the second 16th notes, and this is giving it a little bit more groove, you know, because we will just pick the whole ARP now and drag it to the left. Then we will get a feeling for how it would be if it would start on the one. Okay, so let's just solo the kick and the bass with our ARP. Now let's have a listen again, like how it's originally. Alright, so if we take all those notes now, just hit Command and A, select them and just pull them 1/16 to the left by hitting the left arrow. Let's have a listen now. It sounds a little bit more standard now. So as a rule of thumb, I mean, of course, this is not a real rule, okay? As I said earlier, please feel free to break those rules. But starting on a 16th note and not necessarily on the one, this can make your ARP a lot more interesting. And this is something we're going to try to recreate later on when we're going more into the practical sessions, where we will create some ARPs in the style of Mastani or with these rules applied. Right, so this was the first thing that popped out when I was listening and analyzing this ARP. So the next thing is that this B here, it's playing always on the downbeat. So it's like, you know, we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's coming on every clap position, and it's the B, and the B is like it's also the root chord note at that time. Every time like the 1, 2 comes and the 1, 4, it feels a little bit more like home. So we're leaving home tonal wise, and then we're coming back home. Have a listen to that. I will just unsolo everything. Okay. I think this is also something we can use for ourselves. So if we say, okay, we have a chord, which is in this case it's a B minor, then the root note the root chord note of that chord is the B. So the note B will feel the most stable. It's also the most boring one actually. It's not creating any tension. There are no vibrations over each other that are interfering. It's just very, very basic, but it also has this feeling of coming home. So this is something we can use for ourselves to see, okay, if we want this like tension and release, also this is just actually a little bit of like, yeah, not call and response, but it's like going somewhere and then coming back home. We can use this technique. Okay, so the second rule of thumb could be use your chord tones that are inside the chord you're currently in. So in this case in B minor it would be B, D and F sharp to create this coming home and leaving out of the tonality. I mean we can, okay, so if we have a closer look, I've just folded all of those MIDI notes. Actually it looks like this. I would suggest you to go to the left and enable the scale here. Let's go hit B minor. So there are a lot of scales here, but it's just a normal B minor one. And now you can see like in the first bar or in the first two bars where we're are in the B minor chord, there is playing the B, the D and the C sharp. And the C sharp, I mean you can even see it here. So there's this half step here. So the C sharp, it will try to resolve in the D. This is why the D is working here pretty well. But in general, there are 4 notes that are very stable in this context. There's two and there's two that are very stable because they're inside the B minor chord. And then there's this one note, C sharp, which is the second degree of the B minor scale, which acts as a leading tone if you are watching it from the perspective of the D here, okay? Bum 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 bum. All right, so let's just have a quick look into how he's dealing with those notes in the following chord progressions. So first we have the B minor, then it's switching to D major. Okay, so now he's changing the lowest note of the arp, which was a B, into an A. And that's because in D major, the B would be the 6th degree. In the 6th degree, it's like it won't feel very stable to the listener, okay? And this has to do something with consonant and dissonant intervals. So if you, for example, if you're listening to, let me just insert a piano here, or let's do an operator, actually. Cool. So a small excursus into consonant and dissonant intervals, right? So consonant intervals are the octave. It sounds very, very stable, maybe a little bit boring, actually. Another consonant interval is the 5th. It's just sounding super stable, warm, and kind of at home. I just want to make a very quick look into a very dissonant interval so you can just feel the difference somehow. So let's try out the tritone, which is a half step below our 5th. And just now you should get the feeling, you know. And what you're listening for is like a kind of a vibration, you know? So this sounds very stable. This is like, I can really hear the drag towards, it wants to resolve the tritone back into the 5th. Okay, so consonant intervals. Octave, thirds, minor third, major third, 5th, octave. Okay, and all the other intervals, I mean, there are different perceptions in music theory for that, so I don't want to go too deep into this. But as I said, root note, octave, thirds, doesn't matter if minor or major, and in the 5th they are very consonant, they are very stable. And all the other ones, you can put them more into the direction of dissonant intervals. Of course, there are different degrees, so if you would take a 4th, sounds pretty stable to me. Instead, if you take a major second, this does not really sound stable at all. Okay, so now let's do the transfer to our track. Because if we would have a look at the MIDI information here, the overall chord is changing to D major at this point, yeah, at bar 3. So the B would be the 6th degree if you're watching it from the angle of the D, okay? Because the fifth of the D is the A and the B would be afterwards. So you have to be a little bit aware of music theory there. But I mean, this is just the theoretical part. I think you can also, this is something we all feel more, you know? So if he would have put the note not on the A but left it at the position of the B, we could just have a listen. It wouldn't feel that good at that moment, okay? Let's do it from the beginning. It's working out, actually. It's not a very, very dissonant interval at that moment, but it feels better if it's, you know, going on that fifth of the D, which makes it feel very stable and also kind of as if it was pretended, you know, and it was pretended. So let's have a listen again when this note is going to the A. In the next two bars, the chord is changing to a G major chord, and now he's transferring or alternating the note up again to the B, because the B here is the third of the G major. So this will feel very stable again. He left all the other notes just the way they are, and I think this is like this is what I tried to explain in the beginning, because this B note here, it's always coming in the 2 and the 4. Which are also very strong beats and very like accentuated because the kick and the clap are playing there together. Those are more the ones that they're not that syncopated, you know. It's like syncopation is if you move more notes, or that's my explanation for syncopation here, to like the second, the third, and the fourth, 16th position of your quarter note. Alright, so he is only changing the notes that are one, the lowest, to the according chord, and leaving the other one in place because they are also syncopated. You know, this one is playing like on the second 16th note here of this quarter. This one is playing on the fourth one. So this one is actually the only one that's really on a strong beat. Alright, so let's continue with the last one here before we get into the leading tone, which is the A major chord, and he's basically doing the same again. He's just transposing this B note here down to the A note there, because we're in A major and this is just the most stable note. It would be the A there, because it's the root note of the chord. And then there's this interesting part coming here in the end where we have the leading tone or leading note, which is the A flat. So I will just go into this clip here. Sorry, delete this once. And let's just consolidate that. Maybe it's easier for you to see it like that. In this part here, boom, 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 boom. We have to adjust the notes accordingly to our leading tone. So the leading tone, as I said, is the A sharp here. And this is also where the arp has to go there. Because if we stay at the A, let's have a listen. Oops, sorry. It's also working out because it's just a very short amount of time that we're spending there, so there's not a too long dissonance. I mean, this is also a principle of dissonance. Dissonance is not bad or something in music. It's just how long do you have the dissonance, and is it all the time? And I mean, you can do some very suspenseful chords with that, you know. People are using dissonance to create a certain mood. In this case, you can just get a very interesting sound out of scale chord, which is, or in this case, the out of scale note, the leading tone. So why not going with it and just emphasize it a little bit more? So this is why we would transpose this one up a half set, which is equal to the note that is getting played in the bass line at this moment. Okay, so this is just a brief analysis of how I think that Masane was coming up with this idea. And now we're just going to create some basic rules for that, and then let's go into the practical sessions where I will show you how we create the wavetable sound as well, the effects, just some basic processing, and then we will go and create some different arps in this style. over the same chords. Rule of thumb number 1 would be use syncopation. Syncopation means, which I explained a little bit earlier, that you don't go with like only quarter notes or eighth notes, okay? Those are those which are getting played by the kick and the hi-hat and the clap. This is just giving you your rhythmic reference. It's just this is giving like the corset of your track. This is making it stable, you know? And now you're trying to build around that. You're not trying to like go with all the same rhythms all of the time, okay? Because that would just be a little bit boring. So if you would like type something in like this. So now it would be very basic. It's just starting on the 1, and the next note is coming on the second beat, and then there's this offbeat note. Sorry, let's start from the beginning here. Bum bum bum. If we would try to unsyncopate this rhythm here, we would just, as I did, drag the D away from the second 16th note to the on beat, to the 1, and this C here we would drag it to the off beat instead of having it on the 4th 16th note. So have a listen to this, and now have a listen to the syncopated version. So it feels more groovy. So this is like how you can syncopate stuff, you know, by yourself. If you have the feeling that something is not working out the way you want, it's not that groovy, you will just try to syncopate a little bit more. I think you have to watch out that you're not overdoing syncopation, because then it's always like finding the golden mid of everything, because if you have only notes playing on like the 2nd 16th and 4th 16th all the time, it will sound a little bit weird and like super busy all the time. So you can, you have like boring and super confusing, and you're trying to find something in between there. Alright, so use syncopation for your arpeggios. Rule of thumb number 1. Rule of thumb number 2 would be develop short melodic themes, then copy them over your track and adjust some of the notes accordingly to the chords that are getting played. So this is basically the thing that Masane did here. He's just developing this one theme here in the beginning, and he copied it over, and then he just adjusted all the different notes accordingly to the chords that are underneath that melody. Rule of thumb number 3 would be try to be in the range of 1 octave. So he's not changing too crazy here. It's nothing that is super like going high up and then it's falling down again. So if you're trying to stay in the range of 1 octave, I think this works pretty well. And I think it works well because if we sing something, like we oftentimes, like it feels very natural for our voice. And because it feels natural for our voice, it also feels natural for us as human beings to sing in the range of 1 octave. We wouldn't go like from like a B, and then we would go like jump 2 octaves to a higher B, and then jump down like, I don't know, 16 semitones to whatever note, you know? So what makes sense in music is oftentimes more like smaller gaps between notes, and this is especially a rule of thumb that I would apply here in this Masane style main lead arp melodic house that we are trying to produce. Alright, so we haven't spoke too much about like the sound design part of this one, so the timbre or the quality of the sound, the tonal quality. As it is a main lead arp, I would suggest you to play with the cutoff and the envelope mount on the filter. So we are just like starting in a pretty mellow timbre, and then we are developing throughout the track by opening up the cutoff, so the whole synth gets more intense. So let's just go into our wavetable here real quick, and I will open up the frequency for you, so you can really hear what I'm talking about. So this is how you could open up the cutoff a little bit. Of course, you would do it much slower if you were thinking about the whole arrangement and the whole course of the track. This was just a little bit sped up version. Alright, so with those rules of thumb applied, I would just jump in and create an ARP from scratch together with you and trying to apply those rules and trying to make as many examples as possible and trying to have a talk about what's working out there, what's not working out here. And I also want to give you some little tricks and tips that I've collected in my hours of YouTube watching and tutorials that I consumed over the last years. So let's start by creating a new MIDI channel by hitting Shift Command and T. This is the fastest way to do it. And now let's just insert a wavetable synth here by double clicking. And let's call this main lead ARP jam. So we already deactivated our main lead ARP. That is perfect. And now I just, you know that I like to start directly with some effects on my synthesizers, because otherwise sometimes you cannot imagine how it will sound like with effects on, or at least I cannot do it. If you can do it, it's pretty good. But that's why I like to start with effects on early on, because this dreaminess that the effect will generate, or the delay and the reverb we will apply, we need it for our composition as well, you know. Alright, so let's directly insert an echo here. I'm just taking the normal one from Ableton, but you can use whatever you want. And per default, it's always set to this like 1/8 rhythm synced to our DAW and within dotted note value. Dotted means that it will not play straight 8th notes in the delay, or the delay will not delay the note information as straight 8th note value, but an 8th note plus a 16th note. Yeah, that will be the time that the delay is generated. So this kind of dotted style delay is pretty groovy if you compare it with a normal one, because it's not delaying the signal as straight, so as like in a straight 8th rhythm, because dotted means that the delay time will be an 8th note plus a 16th note. And this will create a nice rhythmic variation in your delay. So let's just turn down the dry and wet here, increase the feedback a little bit, so we create more clouds or more grains with our delay. And now let's insert a reverb, put the quality to high, decay time I would, around 4 seconds or something, not that much mix. So if we would play a note here, I have to turn this down. Alright, already sounds pretty cool because of the effects. If we would turn them off, as I said, pretty cool. So let's go into our wavetable synth. So now on the left side, we can choose different shapes. So now currently we're playing a sinus wave, and now we can this is why it's called wavetable, because this is like a table where you can, make a smooth transition between all the different basic shapes of your waveform. Yeah, like morphing it. You can select all kind of different shapes up there. And this is something that I will put in the category of secondary aspects, because really it's not that important which shape you use in the end. This is just more of a secondary sound design aspect, and here really you can feel free, just pick whatever fits your music the most. Some people like square waves, I personally like saw waves more, but this is just a matter of taste, not really that important for our course here at the moment. So I would just go with a basic saw wave at this point. Let's decrease our filter frequency, so some or all of our frequencies are getting cut away, and then we can open it up in a certain shape with our envelope later on. Let's close down the frequency. Put this filter slope, which is the 12 here, that's getting displayed here and highlighted with the blue. Let's click on it, and now it's a 24 dB slope filter, which just means, for example, if you have if you just put it in a queue here and enable the last band, the 8th one. Now you have like this is like the normal slope, and then you have like this multiplied by 4 slope, or I don't know how to call it, and this is just making it a lot steeper. So it's cutting away the frequencies more radical. So this is the same thing that's happening here. So if you close down the filter and you put a 24 dB slope on it, and now when we go to matrix, which just means here you can say this parameter, this LFO or this envelope should influence whatever other parameter parameter, the cutoff, the resonance, whatever. So if we increase our envelope 2 here on the filter frequency of our first filter, which is this one we just set up, now with the 24 dB slope, it will sound more pluckier than with the 12 dB slope. And that's why we do it, because like our ARP, it needs to be from the sound design part here a little bit more plucky. All right, so let's just have a listen to how the sound is now. And you can already hear like this kind of plucky thing. So if you increase the envelope 2 here, it starts to come out more. All right. Now it's very important that you find a good balance between your general frequency knob and the envelope 2 amount. So I think there a rule of thumb would be the lower you put your frequency cutoff, like the general one, the higher you should put your second envelope, because then you're just making those values more extreme, and because you're closing down all the filter, like that really you can hear nothing. And then like this envelope, if you increase it, it will have a very big impact on the cutoff, because if you had the cutoff here, it would only have this way up here, you know, that is getting increased by the envelope 2. So very low cutoff, more higher envelope, but if you like put up the frequency here a little bit more, you can decrease the envelope here, and then you will just like fool around with this a little bit, and you will also find your own style on how plugs should sound for you. If you like them more mellow, of course you wouldn't use that much of a filter opening. Alright, so if we go to mod sources here, and now we have our amp here, envelope 2, envelope 3, LFOs and all that jazz, we can just drag down this envelope 2 sustain point here, because we don't need any sustain here. We just want the envelope 2 to just close down. And now we can just start playing with those times a little bit more, dragging to the left, we'll shorten it up. Okay. So this is something just to fool around. This is all pretty cool. What I actually don't like is that you cannot automate this parameter. Anyone is working from Ableton here, please enable this function that we can automate this parameter. It's super important. All right, so this is just so much about like our sound design part. As I said, this is not really the focus of this class. This class is about melody writing and ARP writing. So let's go and create a MIDI clip and start applying those rules. Cool. So you can just create a MIDI clip by selecting a certain part in your arrangement and then just hitting Shift Command and M, and it will create a MIDI clip right away. All right, so now we are in the scale of B minor. So let's enable the scale here. Let's go to B. Let's choose minor here. So now we have a clear visual representation of the notes we can use. I will just change the color here so it's a little bit more obvious. Cool. So with our rule of thumbs applied, we will have to make a theme that is just 1 bar long. It's not expanding the range of an octave. I would even say we should decrease that range a little bit more, maybe to a 5th or something. We have a couple of notes that are in the chord that are playing on the strong downbeats. So for example, if we would start now with the B here, this is all the time we have from here to here just to build our basic melodic theme that we can duplicate later on. Okay, so let's try to put the D on the downbeats. Masani, he made it with the B, but as I said, all the chord notes that are in that chord, they will sound pretty stable. So I think we can also try it with a different one, so we don't copy it exactly. Okay, next one would be, let's use syncopation. So now we have our coming home note there. It's on the 2 and the 4. Dun, dun, dun. And now we need something that plays with it, that's like going out and then coming back there, okay? And for that we want to use one syncopation and then at least one note that's not a note from our basic root chord, okay? So to use syncopation, as I said, we can use the second and the third and the fourth 16th note, and we can also use the offbeat, the third 16th note in our first quarter. Let's just try to start with the F sharp on the second 16th note. Alright, so now first note is set. So let's just experiment a little bit on how other notes could work out. Always having a look at our rules. Cool, so this quarter here, it's pretty empty now. So let's try to put some notes in there. So we are in B minor here and we haven't played the B at the moment, so why not trying this and just putting a B on a syncopated 16th note here and then going to our C sharp, and then we will see if it's working. I mean, the C sharp, it's the second degree of our B, so and thus the leading tone towards the D, and this could work out pretty well. Maybe something like this. Bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum bum, you know? And this is something like I'm hearing one more note now in this last bar here, which is, I think maybe it's an E. I don't actually know. But this is something you should always listen for, okay? I will just give you this rule of thumbs, as I said. But please, if you hear something, if you have a feeling of there's something missing here, there's a little bit too much going on here, then go. And even if you don't know the exact note, this is the feeling you want to embrace in yourself. You know, this is like your artistic inner child you want to grow. Okay, so let's just go with an E here and let's just loop this section, this first bar, so then we can have an impression about how it will sound if it's going on all the time, even though we are not adjusting like the notes according to the chords changing. I think it's working out. So let's just increase the length of this loop by duplicating it. And now we can start to adjust some of the notes accordingly to our chords. All right, so in the first two bars until here, we are in B minor. So everything is good. Here, there's nothing that is clashing too much. Now we're going to our D major, and this note that we're landing on, so on the strong beat, it's already in D, so we don't have to change that note. Sorry. But this note down here, because as I said, the lower the note gets, the more it should be in the chord tonality that is currently playing. Because as I said, deep frequencies, they're not mixing up very well together. I will not make an example right here. We'll just choose those two notes because from bar 3 to bar 5 in those two bars there's the D major chord playing here, as we can see in the arrangement view. Okay, let's have a listen to that. So now we're in the G major here from bar 5 to bar 7, and I think there's not everything working out perfectly, but our lowest note, the B, it's the third of our G major chord, so it's working out. The note that is on the downbeats here, it's the D, and this is the fifth of the G major chord, so it's working out as well. The only note that could be a little bit problematic here is the highest note here. It's an F sharp, and G, they're clashing because it's like a half tone apart, you know? So if you have a listen to those notes, that would be like. But it's playing a very short time, so maybe we're not even aware of that dissonance that should theoretically going on there. But let's try to move this one up to the G, so we're safe. So now what could happen now is that it will sound a little bit boring, and then we would have to change it back. But this is something you can listen to for yourself and decide it on your own. Don't know if I like it. Let's change it back and listen again. I think I would leave it there. Alright, so now we have to change something here. We are switching to A major in our chords. And now this downbeat on the D is not making any sense anymore. So we'll just pick those three notes, because in this part of our harmonic content there will be the leading tone, and we have to adjust that in a second step. So now let's just transpose those notes up to the E, which is the fifth of the A. And now we are having like a little bit of a problem, is maybe too hard word, but there are two E's following each other, and this could be a little bit boring because, yeah, we, like in all the other shapes before, we hadn't like the same notes playing after each other. So maybe we have to change this note as well. A second thing is that we're changing to A major here, so the B, the lowest note, is not making sense on the B anymore, so we have to transpose this either down to our A or could go up to the C sharp, but I would go to the A because on the C sharp we already have this note that is playing afterwards, and then it would be a little bit boring if the two of the same notes are repeating. So let's have a listen. So as I mentioned earlier, this part here, it's not making any sense, unfortunately. So maybe we can just take this note and transpose it down here on the D or even on the C sharp, which would fit the A major chord characteristic in this part of our track even a little bit more. Alright, and now here we have our leading tone, which is the A sharp, so we will emphasize this as well. So we are on the A here, then we can the next one go to the A sharp. And now it can get a little bit theoretical, but leading tone in this case is the third of the dominant chord of B minor. So if you have your B minor scale, the fifth above the B, it's the F sharp. And of course, you know, dominant chord is always the fifth chord of your scale. So the F sharp major chord, or in this case dominant chord, is the one that's leading back to our B chord, that is the one. So what we can do now is the leading tone that Masane picked to get back to his B, to his one chord, was the third of the F sharp dominant chord. So we have in the F sharp, the dominant chord, we have the F sharp, we have the A sharp, and we have the C sharp, and then we have like the dominant note, which is making it a dominant chord, which is the E. Okay? So now, as we know that our leading tone in the bass line sorry guys, this is a little bit theoretical, but it's important to understand. So our leading tone in the bass line is the third of our F sharp. We can now use all those notes in the F sharp to design our arp in that last section. Okay, so we have our A sharp here, which is the, as I said, which is the major third of our F sharp. So now we can use the C sharp here, which is the fifth of our F sharp dominant chord, and then we have our E, and this is pretty cool because this is the seventh note, which is making it really dominant of our F sharp. So let's have a listen now. Working out pretty well. Alright, so let's go back to our wavetable synth and play a little bit with the parameters. I just want to give you a brief impression on how you could even go further with the sound design there. So let's close down the filter a little bit more. Make it a little bit more plucky by increasing envelope 2 amount on the filter frequency. Let's play a little bit with the basic shapes. Sounds also pretty cool. Maybe a little bit more delay. Yeah. Now, and that's pretty cool because you have this delay, and when you open up the filter very quickly, the opened up notes that were played of the synth, they will get delayed over the other one. So it's smoothing out the cutoff opening, and it's not like open close. It's open close, and this open close movement will also get delayed. So this is pretty cool. Sorry, I have a little bit of CPU crackling sometimes. We can even enable oscillator 2 here, and what I like to work with is a little bit of noise amount, just when you open up the filter, that that the sound will get a little bit grippier. So we can choose white noise here, and on the left side here you can see the volume control over your oscillator, that it's just getting turned on. So let's just decrease the volume here and open up the filter, which is the same for both oscillators at the moment. And now let's dial in the white noise. Is it even white noise? This is not even white noise. I'm looking like for weird. In which world is this a white noise? Okay guys, girls, we will not use this white noise here. I think this was like the first example, and now let's just jam around and come up with different ideas. So let's keep this one, just duplicate it here, and let's delete our notes. Let's again create a MIDI clip, hitting Shift Command and M. Let's choose a different color for this one so we can see it more clearly and which scale we're in. All right, a very interesting approach on, especially on writer's block, I would say, comes from a tutorial from Sebastian Leger. It's on YouTube. Check it out. It's awesome, where he really goes into his process of everything, basically, making a whole track there. But there's one point which I think is pretty interesting, and that point is where he's composing like a melody or ARP, I don't know. And what he's doing is he's just like hitting B, and then he's just like inserting notes. And afterwards, he's just like, I'll just turn this little pre-listen knob out here. And then he's just going in there, and really he's like deleting notes randomly. So I will just close my eyes, and I hope I hit some of them. So, okay, and then he just deletes some notes, and then he's listening to it. Okay, and this is like, I think it's super cool for if you're in a writer's block, you know, because then you have notes and get rid of notes instead of like, okay, which notes are the right ones on which position, and I don't know how to proceed, and, you know. So I think this is a pretty cool approach. Also, it can make you pretty creative. So now we have like just some notes that we dialed in, and now we can start applying those rules of thumb for this Masane style ARP. So the rules of thumb have been, we have our very strong and homecoming note, which was in our case the D, and in his case the B, or it could be even the F sharp. But we will use a B here, and it's coming on the downbeat. So let's just drag a note from one of our notes we just created and put it on this downbeat. And then we have our other notes that are more like playing a syncopated rhythm. Of course, I would just vary the pitch here a little bit to not stay on one note all the time, because I mean, it's melodic house, and if we don't make any melodies, and melodies are just a series of different notes with different pitches, it wouldn't make any sense for us. So, I mean, this is already a cool rhythm, you know. It could work like in a more, like if you transpose this down, could work like in a more afterlife-y, more techy style. So if you want to do something like that, feel free. But this is, you know, I just want to make you aware of how different producing decisions lead to different outcomes and to different styles as well. Now we have those three notes here, and if we apply our like Masane style rules, we would say, or in this track he made the rules that we created, we would just click on this note and deactivate it, because we want to start not necessarily on the one, but with a more syncopated rhythm. So let's take the second note here, and of course we want to create a melody, so we have to vary the pitch of our notes. So let's just go down this time. I will just trying different stuff here and start on the F sharp, because as I said earlier, if you're starting, the lower you get with your notes that are being played, the more important it gets that they are really like harmonically right, okay? Because otherwise, like deep frequencies, they really clash with each other. So we will going down here, so let's try the F sharp, which is the fifth of the B, which will sound kind of stable. All right, cool. So we're getting home here. So let's just, I don't know if we need this note here. Let's just delete it or deactivate it for a moment. So we're leaving our track a little bit of space. Or if we want this, maybe we can alternate it to a different pitch, so it's not playing the same notes one after the other. I think this is also kind of a rule of thumb, you know? All right, so let's deactivate this for now. Sorry for the CPU crackling. So now I think this could work for our first two quarters. So let's try by alternating those notes. Let's go down as well, and with this one to the A. And now we will, I mean this ones we can really try to, we can do like a run here. So now we have like this shape that's going up. Could be a little bit boring maybe, but let's try it. Let's try to loop this section so we can have an impression of how it would sound like if it's repeating itself. Just have to check if the camera is recording properly. Well, we can make it even a little bit groovier here in the end by just deleting this note here. So the 2nd and the 4th 16th note, they are the grooviest ones. Then there's the offbeat, like 8th notes, or the 3rd 16th note, that is already pretty groovy. And the beat on the kick on the first hit 16th of the quarter note, this will be the most stable, but as well the most boring one. And now we can just try to vary those shapes here. I mean, now if we would just delete those notes so we can see it better, we're going up and then we're going up again. So we could even try to, in the end of this one, just go down to create a little bit more interest. And this G, for example, here, it's not working out. It's just too. It's too deep already, and thus with the B minor chord, it would be like the 6th degree, the minor 6th degree, which is clashing with the F sharp. So what would be playing at that moment would be this, and this is not sounding good. So now you have an example for what is not working as well, which I think is sometimes pretty important. Okay, cool. So we will not take that note and just go with the D. We could even go higher up here with the B, and let's try an F sharp, which is the 5th, which should work out pretty well. And really, guys, girls, just do whatever you want here, okay? If you want to make it more extreme, if you want to not stay in the range of a 5th or an octave, feel free. Just it has to sound good for you. I mean, we're like, I think we should leave this one on our like 2nd and 4th clap position. I think that's important. I mean, and now we could start to dial in a little bit more notes. And this would sound a little bit boring because this shape is super similar then to this one. And both, like at the 4th 16th position of this quarter here, there's the D, and in the same one here, it's also in that position. And this will make it sound a little bit boring. So let's try a different note. Let's make it more syncopated. So now those two parts, they act more if they're like independent from each other. So we have like this shape that is going up a little bit, like imagine a line going up here and then it's like increasing directly. Then it's falling down and then it's doing like kind of a similar motion here, not that extreme, but yeah. So to make it more coherent or make it more glued together, we could try to transpose this F sharp here. So we're like staying with our line up here and then we're going down. And to make this gap a little bit smaller, we can even transpose this note up to the D. You can hear it, it's like dun dun dun. This sounds really, really standard, so it's cooler on this position here. Maybe we delete the D here. Now it's again a little bit boring because those two notes are repeating each other. Just trying around a little bit here. No. Yeah, why not? Alright, so and even like that, we didn't even adjust it like the notes according to the chords that are being played, but it works pretty well. And I try to always go like back and forth between like my sound design and wavetable opening a little bit to get a feeling for how it would sound like in the end in my track, you know, if we would really like compose it with that melody. Alright, so let's do the same thing as we did before. Duplicate this loop until it has a length of 8 bars, which you can see on the left, or you can just watch out for those little, you know, cannot see them at the moment, these things right here. It's also indicating that the loop is finished at this time. Alright, so let's duplicate this loop again. And now we will go and adjust the notes according to our chords. So first one is right, we already made it fitting the B minor chord. The second one is the D major chord, and I'm just going through all the notes very structured from the top down. So the B is actually not in the D major, but it could work out because A, it's high above, like it's higher above like the D and not as low as this one here, for example. And as we experienced earlier, the higher notes, sometimes it's better to leave them in the place because they're giving a certain frame to our arp. Alright, second one is the F sharp. This will fit because it's the third of the D major chord. The third one is a D. This will work out very well. And now we're getting a little bit into a problematic point because the D major, now we actually have the B, which will, I think, work out on the top here because not that many notes and a lot of higher, but I think down there we should transpose it down to the A. And now we have this problem again that we have two notes, those two notes here. You can select individual notes by hitting shift and just clicking on them. And we don't want this to happen, so either transpose it up here to the B or we go down to the G. Yeah, this is just something we can try. And then again we have the F sharp here, which will work out. So let's have a listen. Wait. I think it's important that you start always on, or not always, but to get a feeling for how the harmony changes and if there's too much changing or like the harmony that is the arp is playing at that moment. So start on the B minor chord on your 1 and then listen for the transition. Does it feel right? Is there too much changing? Is there too less changing? Those are all like parameters you can listen for. Working good? Alright, so now, oops, I put this back here. Now we're in the G major chord. So we have our B. B is the third of the G major. This will work out. F sharp will not work out. It's again this clashing tone right there, the half step. Let's transpose it up to the G. Then we have our D. D is the fifth of the G, will work out. Then we have the B, again, that's the third. We have the A, which is this interval here. It's a little bit dissonant, but at the same time, it's not really playing a lot of notes here, so I think we can leave it there. And then we have one note which we should look out for. This is this very low F sharp, and this needs to be changed to the G. Alright. Now we have to change to A major. Same procedure here. We will leave this in place because we want our frame in the upper register to be the same. Then we have our F sharp here. This won't work out, so let's transpose this down to the A. I'm just trying to fit all those notes in the arp into the corset of the chord that it's currently played. D will not work out, so we will just go on the C sharp, which is the major third of the A, which will sound pretty good. Now we have a lot of notes going on here on the B, which I think will not work out pretty well. So we should transpose those notes down. I mean, and those are the notes on the second and the fourth, the clap position, which are our coming home notes. So we should transpose them down to the A here. Let's select those two notes and transpose them down. F sharp will not work out pretty well in those lower registers here. So let's transpose this down to the E, which equals the fifth of our A major chord. Okay, and now, of course, here we're getting back to our leading tone. So we can just adjust some of those notes. Again, the chord that is actually playing at that time is an F sharp dominant chord. So we can use all the notes from that, which are E is fine, C sharp is fine, and then we're just going to use A sharp here in the end, because this will be our leading tone. So now it should work out pretty well. Yep. Alright. Another basic ARP theme. Alright, so I just want to make a short excursus into some processing steps, because now, I mean, I like to, there are some time-based effects like echo and reverb, and they're really adding signal to what's already there. And then there are like some effects like erosion, overdrive, saturation, EQ, which are not adding anything particularly like time-wise to your signal, okay? So there's a pretty cool preset called White and Dirty, but from this erosion here, from this erosion effect. So I just want to make this whole lead a little bit fatter and wider and nicer and all that jazz. So let's create a return channel, insert this White and Dirty preset from erosion, and now let's just solo our main lead ARP and increase the send here to solo the send as well. And now it really adds some nice overdrive to our sound, makes it more analog. So if we close down the filter a little bit more, now it gets really moody. And this is some kind of sound that I can hear a lot in Ben Böhmer productions also. Alright, cool. So let's add even a little bit more EQ to this White and Dirty preset. And that's the cool thing about sends. Now you can effect your effect. So now we can say, okay, we like those highs. So now we can effect the effect. And that's pretty cool because we can cut out the lows from our White and Dirty send here. At the moment it's super quiet. That's because of my gain staging here in my mix and because of the headphone levels. That's why you don't see the visual representation, but the EQ is working. So we can really just use the highs, and now we could even say, let's use just a delay, maybe grain delay, on just those distortions. And now we can create like a different rhythm just out of the distortion from our main synth. So, I just want to make up some creative ways of using your effect. Just a little bit less here. Alright, pretty cool, I guess. Let's do another example applying those rules of thumb, and we will see what we can come up with. So let's just copy our idea over here. Let's delete this, create a MIDI clip. And this is something you can do to train this stuff, This is a process. If you do it 1,000 times, you will develop your own feeling for your arpeggios and how you want them to work. So this really, you just try this on yourself all the time, and if something is not working out that well, you just you get rid of it and you make another one, and then another one, and then another one, and this is how you get good. Alright, let's give this a different color. And as we said, let's start this time with the F sharp, which is the fifth of the B minor chord on our homecoming strong note here. And now we want to use some more syncopation, so we will just start with B, which is the root note of our first chord, so it will work out pretty well on the syncopated rhythm right here. And let's add some more syncopation in this second quarter here. So we'll just drag that B by hitting Option and just dragging it somewhere to this, maybe to this note, to the 4th 16th note. It could be a little bit weird now because now we have 2 times like the same syncopation. So we have to see if we change this and maybe put this B here. I wouldn't like suggest you to do like the same notes here and here after such a short period of time, like after 2 quarters. This will sound a little bit boring. So let's just transpose this up to the D, which is the minor third of our B minor chord. Okay, I think that sounds pretty cool. So now I'm hearing like something that's going like down here. So if you would imagine this shape, it just has a line going down here and then it's going up here. And now either it will stay here or it will go down here again. And then we have like a similar shape to the beginning, which would make sense, but could also be a little bit boring. Okay, but we will just try this. So let's copy the note, and I think I want to make it syncopated, of course. Now what I'm thinking about is here we use this B on this position and now it's exactly the same, so maybe this will not work out, but we will have a listen. So I think this note is a little bit boring there, so let's try maybe the C sharp, and this will make sense melodically because those notes are close together. Okay, I think that basic loop is cool, and now we will just expand this a little bit more and to make it more interesting. We will not copy just 1 bar over and over again, but we will copy 2 bars over and over again and just adjust this theme we just made up, you know. So this is like our theme here. We're going down, then up, a little bit down, and then down again on our strong beats where we can rest. So this is what we made up as our like basic motif for this ARP at the moment. So I will try to stay in that shape of going down, then going up, then going down, then going up. And by staying in that shape, with like leaving those notes here on our strong beats, applying the rule of thumb there, we can start, you know, now it's still going down, but a little bit higher. So this can work out. And now I don't want those notes to be like exactly the same ones as they are here. So we could start by doing some kind of the same motion here, but a little bit lower in general. So, you know, now it's the whole phrase is making sense, but it's not exactly the same all the time. And then we can add, if we want, like a note here in the end that is just playing like a little fill right there, okay? Let's loop this. And this is not pretty good because now there's this B here and it's just coming here directly afterwards, and this is not, this is just boring. So let's use maybe the C sharp here. Not really. Maybe we will use an A here. I'm just fooling around a little bit. Working better, but I think we don't need it at all. Alright, so I think we're at a pretty good point now with this ARP. Now I'm hearing something like bum, 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 like very high here. And again. Maybe just adjust the envelope too a little bit, make it a little bit smoother, longer. Okay, and now we can do the same procedure again, duplicate it until it's 8 bars long. Now we go through all the notes that we have here and adjust them accordingly to our chords. Alright, I will do this real quick now because I think we've got a point. So, second chord is the D major. We just pick this note, transpose it maybe up to the A, which is the 5th. Or let's just leave it in place because we want our frame like that. So we have a D here that's working out. We have a leading tone there towards the D, but it's coming after the D. Don't know if this will work. We have to check it out, but I will just leave it there because it's just one note. So then we have the B. I would transpose this one down to the A because the A is the 5th of the D, and this A has to change now to maybe an G to stay in the same shape but have a different kind of all the time. So those sirens here, it's very annoying. And then we have the F sharp, which is working fine because it's the 3rd of the D major. Good. This one is not working out here. It was just too far out. Alright, now we're at the G major. F sharp is not working here. We have to go on the G. It will clash. Same story. A is okay, it's just playing one note. B is okay, it's good, it's the major 3rd. Then we have our C sharp, it's playing one note, I think that's okay. So if you have you don't have to press everything into your melody, into your chords. So if there are just a couple of notes that are off, but they are not playing all the time, it's not necessary that you have to adjust them. Okay, so we have our D, that is the 5th of our G, that's okay, and then we have the F sharp here. We could go to the G above it, but as I said, higher notes are not clashing that much if they are dissonant with each other than lower notes, and I want to stay in this shape. Alright, now we have to adjust the notes accordingly to the A major chord that's playing here at this moment. So let's start with the highest one, is the F sharp. Let's leave it just like that. Then we have our D. This not work out because it's the 4th degree of the A, which is okay. It's not like a minor second or something, but I think I would go up here to the E. Let's try this. Yeah. This one can stay just the way it is because it's the C sharp, which is the major 3rd of the A. Then with our B here, I would change this to an A. And now we have to watch out that we don't have a repetition of these notes here. So let's just change this to a G here. And then we have our F sharp playing our coming home note here. And this is not working out because we're in A major. And we should change this to an E, which is the 5th note. And then in the very end, where there's our leading tone. I mean, the leading tone is starting here, so we could even start to vary the pitch of this one towards the leading tone, and then just go with this F sharp dominant, which is cool like that. This is like the major, the dominant 7th, minor 7th, sorry, of the F sharp. so many words, and this is just the root note of the chord. Okay, so let's check it out. And just fold this so we can have a little bit more clear look. Working out. Now we can start playing around. And I mean, this is like, it won't stop here, you know. So now we adjusted everything, and now you can go and start like building smaller fill-ins and all that stuff here. Fill-ins are just at the end of every bar, or every 2 bars, or every 4 or 8 or 16th bars. Something has to happen to keep the interest of the listener, okay? So this is where you just want to create variation. You don't want to like introduce a completely new theme or something. You would just create some variation in those elements you have. It's like a drum player. He would play like his basic groove, and then he goes into like a fill mode, and it's just rearranging those basic elements he's playing with, and then going back to the shape he was. So we could try to break out at the end of every 4 bars. So right before bar 5 here, by just, I don't know, I'm just like now randomly clicking in some notes here. Let's have a listen how this would feel. without this one. Yeah. And we can do one in the very end, which is in the right harmonically context with our leading tone. Yeah. Just a little bit less filter. And it's pretty cool if you map like this frequency knob, if you map it to like a controller, something like this. I mean, it's like, so we don't have any endorsement with this company. It's called MIDI Fighter Twist, and it's just knobs, but it's pretty cool if you're working with software. You can just use this, and I don't know, it's $100 or something, to control everything, because I think sometimes it's nicer if you have two hands and you can put them on your controller and then control the parameters there. So yeah, I think those were like 3 examples to like how to make an ARP or an ARP main melody ARP in the style of Massenet. And I think you can, as I said earlier, if you wanna do this by yourself, and you don't have to rely on me or anyone else teaching you, I would just go into the tracks, pick apart, like buy them, put them in my DAW, analyze them, and then make a rule like how those people are producing. Because oftentimes those themes and those ways, in those ways who people work, it's just always the same, and they're just, some people love this kind of jazz voicing, some people like this kind of drum sound, they like this kind of EQing and all that stuff. So you can use those principles they use in the end. So you just pick the track, put it in your DAW, analyze it, and then build your own rules, And there are people that are doing very different ARPs as we did here, So this is a very broad spectrum. But I hope that I could help you like with this one kind of ARP style with Massenet. So I would say see you in the next part of the video series. And until that, have fun experimenting. Of course, I will save this wavetable preset here, so you can use it in your own productions. It's nothing special, but maybe you wanna use it. See you in the next video. Bye bye. Hey people, we're back with our melodic house ARP section and melody section. And you see I look very different from the last video, but I thought I change my style as much as I can. What has also changed is our instrumental that we are working with, and I just wanted to extend the last section a little bit more, the main ARP lead section, but this time some kind of like with a combination with the background ARPs. So we will start off by recreating the ARP from Solanka, Solfar, the track. You can check it out if you want. It's the main ARP that's coming in after like 2.5 minutes or something, and there's also a background ARP in that track, which we are also going to recreate. So without further talking, let's just have a listen in what I created in Ableton, and then I will tell you a little bit about the harmonic progression, which isn't that easy in this case, but I think we will rock it. So let's go. Very interesting there. Alright, so this is a very interesting ARP, and I tried to figure out the chords. So the track is in G sharp minor. I recreated the bassline, and the bassline is playing something like a B, which is like the minor third of our G sharp chord, so it's in the scale. Enable the scale right here. Clicking G sharp minor, so now you can have a look at what is playing here. And then he's going like stepwise, actually in whole steps for the first 3 notes, starting on the B, not on the G sharp, which I think is the tonality that he's in. And then he's playing something like the chord. I tried to figure out the chords, and they are So it's a G sharp minor over a B. So he's actually playing a G sharp minor, but he's playing the third, which is the B in the bass. And then he's playing a G sharp sus4 chord over C sharp, or at least that's what sounded most similar in my case, over a C sharp. And then he's playing a D sharp minor, which is pretty standard, and then he's playing a G sharp minor. I don't want to really go into like how he created that. I don't even think that he thought about like, okay, now I will make like a G sharp sus4 chord over a C sharp. I think he was just jamming around and it fitted in his harmonic mind. So this is something I want to just emphasize at this moment. Although it seems a little bit complicated here, it doesn't have to be complicated, you know. So I think he was just fooling around and trying around. So I don't want to go into that harmonic recreation, but we will have a look at the ARP and we will analyze it a little bit, as we did in the previous examples. As I wanna stress it again here, I think this kind of analysis is super important for music production, because this is how you can grab certain elements out of certain tracks. For example, an ARP in this case, or the drums later on or before, I don't know which time this will be in our course, or for example the drums in the drum section. So you just analyze it and then you can use it for yourself. So let's go and have a look and again a listen into this ARP that is playing here. I would like to enable the scale here as well. So let's go to G sharp minor and let's have a listen. Alright, so the first thing that pops into my mind is that this is like just a very simple octave jump here. Again, we're not starting on R1. Right? We're starting on the off hat position, 3rd 16th note of the quarter. Then we're jumping one octave, so the shape goes up here, and then it goes down to our C sharp, which is a fifth below our G sharp here. And this is like, so no note is playing on the first quarter 16th note, you know? So we don't have anything going on here. There's no note playing on this position here, which I think is pretty interesting because this is what makes this ARP pretty groovy as well. So this is what I told you earlier. If you're emphasizing more the second and the fourth 16th note, it will sound more groovy than if you either start on the one. I mean, you always start on the one, that's not a problem, but you should get a good mixture out of either, just as he did, very syncopated notes, or a mixture between notes that are not that syncopated, so they're on the hi-hat position, on the offbeat, or on the onbeat on the one of each quarter. Alright, so this is the second thing that sticks to my mind, or that popped out for me. The next thing is that, so he's jumping up an octave, then he's going down a fifth, and then he's just repeating this motion here. And then it's the same pattern again. So I think he just just copied it over here, then he dropped it down a fifth, copied that over again, and then he just took his whole phrase and copied that over. Oops, sorry, I selected it wrong. Like that. And then he's making some changes. Then he has this kind of a fill sound, but it's not coming in the end of the second bar here. It's coming in the beginning of the third bar, which is also pretty interesting. So let's just have this in mind and have a listen to that. Bum bum ba boom ba boom. Okay, and then he's adjusting some notes here, and I could not really figure a clear pattern out here. I think this was just jamming around and seeing what feels good and what sounded good for him. So he changes those notes at that time, and then he continues in bar 4. It's changing to the D sharp minor chord. Then he sticks to the chord tonality a little bit more. So he's the minor third here of the D sharp minor. He has the D sharp here, which is playing a couple of notes. And then the last chord, as I said, is the G sharp minor, and the G sharp gets played here. And then the fifth of the G sharp is this note. So in the end, I think it's a little bit more, I don't want to say harmonically correct because that's just the wrong term, but in the end he sticks more to the like standard harmonic rules, if you want. But I don't think that we need such a crazy understanding of this like harmonic progression that is going on there. But we will just try to imitate this shape, and we will just apply those rules of thumb, which are syncopation, a lot of syncopation right here, not starting on the 1 octave jump, then going down a 5th. So it's all like octave, 5th. I mean, he's going down a 4th here, going down a 3rd here, going down a 4th here, and 4th is an inverted 5th. So a lot of like more big jumps. There are some, those fill-ins here. They are whole steps. There are not that many whole steps in this kind of arp. So I would say rule of thumb, use a lot of octave jumps, 5th jumps and 4th jumps. Then we should get like a result that is pretty similar to what he did. So we'll try to imitate what he was doing, and I think that was just trying around a little bit, fooling around and see what works well. Alright, so I want to go into this explanation of the primary and secondary aspects of this arp, which we just made up by my analysis of the notes, but also sound-wise, because this really is a main lead arp, and in his track it's opening up later on, and this is a pretty important like synth-wise setting that he created there. So you shouldn't close the synth too much. So let's just create another MIDI clip, and then we will do this synth from scratch so you can see exactly what I did here. Let's copy over the MIDI clip, deactivate this channel, call this mainly ARP 2, and now we'll insert a wavetable synth, which works pretty well with this ARP. And let's solo this for a moment. So he's using a saw wave for this. I mean, saw waves, they're always good if you want to make something that pops out a little bit more, because they have more, they have a brighter overtone spectrum, and this makes it just more present in the whole mix, and it can cut through a lot more than a sinus wave. So whether you choose like a saw or square wave or something from these basic shapes here, this is totally up to you. This is more of a secondary aspect. I would suggest you to enable the 24 dB slope here, again, because if we are then opening up the filter with our envelope 2 amount, it will sound a little bit more pluckier and a little bit more tight in its pluckiness, because the filter is it's a little bit steeper, and the steepness when it gets opened by the second envelope, this is what makes it more plucky. Okay, cool. So let's just have a listen at the moment. Okay, sounds super boring. I think we can enable a second oscillator here, and then if we go down with our mouse to the semitones, let's just transpose this down an octave, and you can do this real quick by hitting the shift and down arrow. And now let's also choose a slightly different position here on the wavetable as we did with first oscillator, but a saw wave as well. Alright, so we're creating an ARP here. We don't need any overlapping notes, so we can put this whole synth to mono on this right side here. Now we put the synth to mono, so there, even if we increase the release time of our amp envelope, which makes it more natural, because no sound in the real world would like sound something like this. It's just, if it's stopping right away, it sounds super unnatural to us. So I would suggest you, if you drag this a little bit longer, so this really doesn't matter, you know, because we have it to mono, so there's one note and it's just releasing, and then there will be the second one. There will be no overlap between the notes, so you can put this as long as you want. Already sounds a lot more natural. So we can drag down the sustain here a little bit. Perfect. So now let's close down the filter by dragging down this frequency knob here. Now we're not hearing anything anymore, so we have to go to our matrix, enable the envelope 2, which you can find here, which is just a basic 80s envelope, to affect the opening of the filter 1 frequency. And now this also sounds a little bit too like to cut it off when it's ending, so we will also increase the release time here. And I will do this really slow, and you're hearing the ARP, so just listen for the natural feeling that it gets when I increase the release time, okay? Sounds super weird like that. Let's decrease the sustain. A little bit longer decay. Let's close down the filter a little bit more. Let's play with the envelope amount here. And you always go back and forth between those parameters, like amp envelope is envelope to envelope, envelope to amount on the filter frequency and the frequency itself. And this is like how you really, those are the most important settings. And they're all like, you have to imagine they're all working together, you know? And so this is how you should go back and forth between those sounds. All right, cool. So I think we have our basic sound right there. We could even dial in a little bit of pitch modulation, like a kind of a vibrato thing. So to do that, we just go to our, again, to our matrix here, and then we have our LFO1 and LFO2 drop-down menu. It doesn't matter which one you choose. That's really, doesn't matter.